Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today's information session about the Arts and Economic Prosperity Research Project being taken or undertaken by Americans for the Arts. So I am Patrick Kelsey, and behind Georgians for the Arts, all things go well, we'll be the statewide partner for the time being. So what I'm going to do right now is go ahead and turn this over to Randy Cohn and Ben Davidson, both from Americans for the Arts, in order to share with you information that you may or may not already know about the AEP6, and to take any questions that you all might have. You're welcome to put them into the chat if you like, or we'll open it up at the tail end of this to go live. Okay, Randy and Ben, it's your show.
Thanks. Well, hi, everyone. It's great to be with you all today, and delighted to talk about AEP6, our in the making, our latest economic impact study of nonprofit arts and culture organizations and their audiences. AEP6, which means we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 since that. And I was looking back over the first study, which we published in 1994, to confirm Fulton County, one of the first study partners in the first study. There were 33 communities back then. In 2017, when we published Arts and Economic Prosperity 5, we had 341 study regions across the country, all over. And so we're very excited about this. And I'm going to provide some overview about the study. And actually, I'll just do sort of short presentation of some data to give you a feel of how it goes. But, economic impact studies, they just help us advance the conversation about the arts. As advocates, we need a quiver full of case-making arrows. We got to be able to talk about the arts, and how they touch our communities as many ways as possible. Now, I always say, if I were some extraterrestrial here from outer space to advocate for the arts, take me to your leader. Oh yeah, and give me one talking point. I'd say make it an economic talking point, because if you look at the congressional record whenever the NEA is debated, or state legislators or city councils or counties, certainly I'll tell you federally, half the congressional record has conversations about the economic benefits of the arts. Every industry's got their economic impact calling card, and now the arts have one as well. Of course, we appreciate the fundamental benefits of the arts, right? They inspire us, and they engage us, and they're food for the soul. They help build healthy communities and healthy individuals. And I want to stipulate all that. I mean, that's why we all got into the business, right? Those reasons. I haven't met anyone yet who's like, someday when I grow up, all I want to do is do economic impact studies of the arts, So, but they're this wonderful tool that we have at our, at our benefit here. So, why don't I just share the screen, and then folks can sort of track. If there's anything in the chat, if a question pops up or something like that, somebody can jump in with that. So Ben or Patrick, let's see. So let me click share screen and make sure everyone's muted. So we only hear what's going on here. All right. So I just pulled up one community in Georgia that was part of economic impact, Arts and Economic Prosperity 5, Fulton County, because they've been in all of them, 5 of them. And I got to tell you, when we did the first study back in the the mid 90s, people were like, "What? Why are we talking about the arts that way?" And even our arts councils were like, "I don't think we should be doing this." Of course, now it's just become, it's just this is what an industry that advocates for itself has in its arsenal. But just to give you an idea, in the last study, we had Atlanta, City of Atlanta, Savannah, Columbia, Fulton County, Augusta, Richmond County. So, we have a number of partners, and Georgia's always been great, AEP5 partners. But this is a big national study looking at the economic impact of nonprofit arts and culture organizations and their audiences. Now, let me even just sort of unpack that a little bit first, because I say nonprofit arts and culture, and that's pretty much what we're looking at. So we don't include, Broadway, we don't include the Hollywood motion picture industry. But we also know in our communities, especially if you're in a smaller community, for example, maybe the community college, the big performing arts center there is the major presenter in town. Well, yeah, technically, Randy, that's a state entity. Well, we would include that because, it's a major cultural provider in the community. A lot of times what we found, libraries more than ever. God, libraries are just the coolest places now, right? They've got rotating art exhibitions. They've got performance series. So we want to capture that as well. Now, we don't want the entire library budget. We just want that arts programming piece of it. And so, that's what we'll say. It's like, yeah, if there's a great program there, find that, capture that. So we see the same thing in hospitals, different places where arts happen, so we call it nonprofit, but if it looks like a nonprofit, and if it acts like a nonprofit, if it's got a, budget that can be captured, then we're going to include it. But, there's only so much space on the cover of the report, so you gotta call it something. And so that's what we go with. So that's who's in that. And we're looking at spending by the arts organizations themselves and their audiences. And I'll, give some data about that. But this is the only study, in the country that's going to really allow you to get that that audience piece, which is really kind of, the value added aspect. So here it is, arts and economic prosperity. This is the last study, 5. And each of these dots across the country, we're in all 50 states. We study communities as small as 1,400 people, as large as 4 million. You know what? Doesn't matter if you're in a small rural community, if you're in a large urban city, if you're in a suburban neighborhood, if the arts are happening there, there is a measurable economic impact. And so, there we are, Fulton County. Everybody catch that little technical effect? Look to your lower right, ladies and gentlemen. No 15-year-olds involved in the making of that. That was all me. Each of these dots represents either a city or a county or a multi-county region. That's why the dots are a little bit different. But, truly it's a big national study. So what we do with this and, how this study is going to work is, it's a national local partnership. This is something we're going to do together. And so let me even just start with the general timing of the whole study. So it's 2021. 2021 is our the year for building our local partners. We're building this is the community recruitment year, and so we're working on doing all of those dots and more this calendar year. Actually, if you do the math, we were supposed to start this a year ago, but we took a Tokyo Olympics approach, and it's like COVID pandemic. So we pushed everything back 1 year. So 2021, that's community recruitment. That's why we're talking right now. 2022, and then spilling a little bit into 2023, that's our data collection year. That's when we're going to get the survey or information from our local arts organizations. That's when we're going to do audience surveys to see how much that audience impact is. And then in June of 23 is when the studies get released, and so that'll be that'll be the big release point. The way this works is we'll build the partnership, and the first thing we're going to do is work with you to identify all the nonprofit arts or like organizations in the study area. So for some people, it's a city. For some people, it's a county. Some people do multiple counties. What do you need to advance the arts in your community? And, and that's what, so That's why we see some of each. You already have heard city, county. Well, which is it? It can be any of it. Um, and we're going to work with you to, sort of methodologically to really do a thorough look to make sure we're capturing all of those organizations, not just the ones you fund or not just the ones you're aware of. There's always some organizations out there that, people are surprised to find. Now, here's something that we're doing different this year. We'll be looking at, the universe of organizations in your community, but we're going to do a subset analysis of BIPOC arts organizations culturally, racially, ethnically specific arts organizations. And so we're going to work with you to really make sure we're able to identify that part of the study universe as well. So it's still the whole study, but it's going to be a breakdown there of this, an additional subsector analysis. Why? You know what? Systemic racism. I mean, we're infusing equity into this study, really for the first time on this layer. And systemic racism, one of its definitions is lack of economic opportunity. So this is one of the things we're really going to capture here. Once we get the list of organizations, and you'll work with Ben on that, and we'll have the name and a contact person, an email. Starting later in 2022, so about halfway through 2022, we're going to start serving those organizations, into slightly into 2023, and ask them about their fiscal 2022 year expenditure. So economic impact, it's based on how much money is spent, on utilities, on production, on, rent, on salaries, all that type of thing. We'll ask a couple questions about revenues, just like for the pie chart. What percentage came from government? What percentage was private contributed? What percentage, was earned? And it's not too odious of a survey, but for organizations that are under 50,000, and that's the majority of arts organizations out there, we actually have a shorter, slightly compressed one as well. I used to run a small theater company back in my California days. I mean, the first 2 years was at a kitchen table, until we moved into like a postage stamp sized office, and really branched out. So believe me, I get small organization, I get capacity. So we're trying to account for that in all the ways. And so that's how we're going to collect that organizational data. And then we're going to work with you to identify about 18 arts events across your community to do interviews of arts audiences. And we'll do like 50 of those at each to do those audience intercept surveys. You can do them on paper. We'll provide you the technology you could do it on a Padlet or a QR code. People could do it on their phone. We're going to make this as flexible as possible to do the audience surveys. So, all right, now I'll just kind of dump into like some data. Here's just sort of, once you see what the data look like, it starts to make some sense. So this was Fulton County. And for Fulton County, remember, so we surveyed the arts organizations, we surveyed the audiences, $382.7 million in spending by Fulton County's nonprofit arts and culture organizations. And here's one of the things that's important to know also, because we're always thinking about credibility. We want you to be comfortable. We want you to be credible. We want the people you're sitting across from talking to about this study to think, wow, this is a great study. Wow, these people know what they're talking about. And they took a conservative approach as well on this. Absolutely. We only use data from the organizations that provide it. So, we got a little over half of the organizations in Fulton County responded. We got all the big ones and the mid-sized ones, and you try and get as many of the smaller ones as possible, but we can put our hands on those $382.7 million of spending. And that fact alone, right? We're all steeped in the arts, and we're always thinking budgets and everything like that. But that fact alone is a myth buster. It shows arts organizations are businesses. They employ people locally. They purchase goods and services from other businesses. They're members of the Chamber of Commerce, and they're involved in the marketing and tourism and promotion of the region. Arts organizations are good business citizens. Now, what about that value added aspect of it? Every organization, economists always used to say, "Oh, I can follow you around and, I can follow every $5 bill," and, writes it on his little yellow notepad, what happened to it. But few industries generate the kind of event related spending that the arts do. And think about, the last time you've gone out to an arts event, or used to go out, depending, where you are. You had dinner, you paid for parking, and there was all that additional spending that goes with it. Fulton County arts audiences, $236.2 million. Arts audiences put dollars into the hands of local merchants. So they're good for the local economy. So there's some things in the chat. Anything I should check on here yet, or Ben or Patrick?
I think we're good. I'm answering a few questions as you go along, Randy.
Awesome.
So
all right.
with it.
Thanks. So so $619 million in spending. Now here's let's break this down to the oops, there we go. And this is just, I think, the most interesting part. So we do all these audience intercept surveys. Nationally, as part of this study, we did 212,000 audience intercept surveys. But in Fulton County, the typical attendee to a nonprofit arts event spends $27.23 per person per event, not even including the cost of admission. And you can see how this breaks down. And, this is, it's usually wherever you go, about half on food and souvenirs and gifts. Maybe you bought something, you did a little retail shopping, parking or transportation, lodging. Some might be thinking, wow, can you still get a room in town for $2.75? And would you want to if you could get it? No, only a percentage of people have an overnight cost. And so that's an average. I was speaking to our arts colleagues up in Wisconsin not long ago, and they had a great other example. There was a farmer who paid somebody $60 to milk his cows so he could go to the theater that night. Isn't that great? People are doing what it takes to get to the arts. Of course, Ben, now we're going to have to add dairy to the survey, I guess, or something like that. But so lots of economic activity. And you know what? When we think about how do we help our communities get to the other side of COVID and this pandemic, the arts are the solution here. The arts get us out of our homes, get us into public spaces. And when we go to an arts event, people spend money, and that's providing valuable revenue to our local businesses, who need it more than ever. Now, here's one of the things we also do. We ask each of those folks for their zip code, because we want to find out, do you live, in this case, in Fulton County, or are you from outside of town? 31%, so a third of attendees at the arts events are from outside of Fulton County. And so what that means, next time you're in an arts event there in Atlanta or something like that, and you're sitting there in a seat, vaxxed and masked, one of the people sitting next to you or you are from outside the county. And look how the spending differs. $37.28 per person per event, not including the cost of admission. And that's where you see the lodging costs, you see more on transportation and food. Now, we didn't even stop there with the questions because we're just that annoying. We also asked those non-local attendees, what if this arts event wasn't taking place? Would you have stayed home? I'm sorry. We asked people what it would, why are you in town? That's what we asked the non-local folks. Are you in town on business? Are you here visiting friends and family? 91%. So just really 9 in 10, almost everybody came and said, we came specifically for this arts event. So you can really see the pulling power that the arts have. Bringing people to the community, those people are spending money. Now, what's the economic impact of that? So, just the economic activity alone, is impressive enough. What we will do for you, and for every community that we study, we customize what's called an input-output analysis model. And imagine your worst calculus nightmare, it uses federal, state, local wage, labor, commerce data It's about 1 million calculations. And it's customized for every single community that we study. And what it does is provides very specific data about, in this case here, jobs. Ask any legislator what their 3 priorities are, and they'll tell you jobs, jobs, and jobs. All right, you know what? If that's what's important to them, we're going to connect our cultural product to their priority. And Fulton County, 19,842 jobs. Now, a question sometimes folks ask is like, well, we need community impact, not just what's going on in the arts. And that's what this is. These are jobs supported across the county. So the arts organization, yeah, they employ people, they pay salaries, but they also, they buy, paint from the local hardware store, 5 gallons at a time. And all right, there's $100 for that. And, that hardware store uses some of the $100 and pays the clerk, and the clerk goes to a restaurant and pays the utility bill, and so that dollar works its way through the community. These economic models that are customized for your community capture all of that and the unique aspects of your community. I mean, the fact is $50 spent in Atlanta is going to have a different economic impact than $50 spent in Augusta. It's just because all those variables, all those differences, we capture all of that in these models. And so that's really rock solid, reliable economic data. All right, so jobs, that's that piece right there. The other big one, government revenue. Fulton County, last study, $55.6 million in local and state government revenue. Here's another advance in this study that we've been able to make, which I'm really excited about. In the past, and this is about half and half local government, state government, I've got all the details if you want, but it was just the aggregate number. And that was great. That got a lot of people's attention. But what we'll be able to do in the next study is actually even unpack that more. And we'll say how much of that money came from hotel taxes, sales tax, property tax. So what are the sources, the inputs that add up to that government revenue? So that's going to be a really exciting development that we can look forward to as well. So it's so every time we do this study, there's some new advances. One of the things we do, because again, this gets back to credibility, this gets back to user ability for you. We partner with a bunch of national organizations on this study. And Washington, D.C., it's the land of national organizations. There's so many national organizations. There's a national organization for the national organizations. They do not. That's true. But you can actually make this work for you because like U.S. Conference of Mayors, well, that's where all the, the mayors, they've got a national organization, National Association of Counties, and, League of Cities, or the city councils belong to that. And, Destinations International, that's where your CVB people get together, and independent sector and Council on Foundations. Our foundations and private funders, they all get together, and conference board, that's the national organization for the Fortune 1000 companies in this country, all national partners on your study. And these logos appear in your study because A, they believe in the power of the arts in their communities, and B, they buy into the methodology, they buy into the results on this. And so when you go and you talk to your county manager, your city council person, or a local business leader, you say, here's the economic impact of the arts in my community. We're not just making this up. Look at your national organizations, our partners on this. So what this shows is that when we support the arts, let's see, let me unshare that. We are getting both cultural and economic benefits in our community. It shows that an investment in the arts doesn't disappear down some black hole of goodness. It gives back jobs, government revenue. So it's just the most powerful study, out there. And like I said, the first one had 33 communities. Now we have 10 times that. And we also will complement that study with some other important findings, related to like even public opinion. I mean, there's, what's the flip side of the economic impact, conversation right now? Well, community unity is a big deal. And so, there'll be new research. I'll tell you the last public opinion study, 72% of the population says the arts unify communities, regardless of age, race, or ethnicity. 73%, the arts help me understand other cultures in the community. So we're really going to give you the full, the full presentation of this. And so that's the study. A little bit about the timeline. And I guess the thing I'll mention next, and then we could sort of open this up and Ben could, add some things I'm forgetting, but, we are with you every step of the way. We are going to provide you with clear, explainable methodologies. Here's how to do this. You are going to, if you have questions or you're not sure, how do I do this again? We'll send you the packet. Ben here, always accessible for this, and so am I. We'll have a playbook. We just call it a playbook because, when we start the study, wow, how do I announce this? All right, well, here's, like a Swiss cheese press release, that's 85% of it. You fill in what you need for your community. And, here are some social media things and messaging. And, when it comes next summer, when it's a year before the study is scheduled to be released, we'll say, all right, now's the time to reach out to your Chamber of Commerce. Let's get a arts lunch, on the Chamber of Commerce schedule for next year. Now, you don't want to wait till the report shows up and do it, because it's like, hey, can we have an arts lunch next month? And they're like, oh man, we're booked out for 6 months. Now we're going to get it on the agenda now. The American, one of our new partners will be the the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives. If you run a Chamber of Commerce, that's your national organization. And so, we'll reach out to you together on this one to really help facilitate those partnerships. Messaging, all of that. So, and then when the study is released, everybody gets their own customized designed report. It's not like here's the boilerplate. You got, a little box on page 28 or something like that. Your community on the cover, your data, all about the study. So, so it's we really try and do this comprehensively with you, soup to nuts. So so I'll stop there. I've been rolling a bit. Ben, I guess there's been some questions and they've been in the chat. Maybe some things you want to bring forward.
Yeah, Randy. So you talked about how the study, the core economic impact analysis, is focused on the nonprofit arts and cultural organizations. Can you talk a little bit about the arts and creative economy reports we're developing and how that fits in?
Yes. So one of the things we're going to make that's going to be new and available next year, it's amazing. The methodology is always advancing. The technology is like always chasing the methodology or one or the other. And I'm just so excited because we've got to have a number of new features in this study. But one is, this is a look at nonprofit arts and culture industry. But we know that is a component of the larger arts sector, arts industries, and creative economy in your communities. And we're now, able to use the technology, and at a county level for all 3,143 counties in the United States, we will be able to start your report and say, in Fulton County, there are, X many arts business establishments that have this much in commerce, that have, in sales, this many employees. There's this many, a number of artists who work in non-arts places. For example, if like a law firm, has graphic artists, right? But they don't show up on, in a lot of the arts data. So it'll provide this big umbrella. Now that's kind of the overall arts and creative economy. It really won't break out commercial and nonprofit, but it's going to provide some larger context for all that's going on in the community. And then we're just going to keep zeroing in. And then, to spending by the nonprofit arts organizations and the event-related spending by their audiences. And this is really the only study that looks at that value-added aspect. So, did that explain it?
Yeah, so there's been a couple of questions in the chat that I think I've answered. One that just came in was about the focus is on performance events rather than on arts instruction. And I would say yes, so we're focusing on performances, events, exhibits, audience spending. The audience spending component is focused on in-person attendance to all types of arts and cultural events. Arts instruction would fall under the umbrella of an educational category rather than an arts and culture category. So for instance, when people ask me about what's happening at colleges and universities, the feedback I give is we want where the arts are happening, not where the learning is happening. So we don't want the budget and attendance from the entire fine arts department. But if there's a performing arts center or a museum or groups that present programming to the public, we do certainly want to include those in our analysis. Looks like a few more questions came in.
Sure, Tracy definitely enlists college students in the audience intercept surveys. That's a strategy a lot of people use, in fact, and we'll share a methodology, on how to do that so they can be trained up.
Yeah, I'd say that one of the questions I get is the concern about the audience survey collection. That sounds like the hardest and it sounds like the scariest part. Some of the folks on this call who have done the study before may feel differently, but I actually don't think it's the hardest part. As Randy said, we received 212,000 audience surveys nationally from AEP5. If you stop and think about it, it's a ridiculous number. It's just a ridiculous sample. Fewer than 1,000 of those were collected electronically for AEP5. So I had 211,000 paper surveys and boxes in my office. And I often told Randy that I'd meet no more fitting end than to get crushed under a couple boxes of audience surveys. We don't, in a perfect world, we don't really want our partners rolling up their sleeves and getting out into the community collecting all of those surveys. We would much prefer you leverage your relationships with the presenters and the producers in your community and have them help you collect those surveys. As Randy mentioned, I know we're gonna offer the survey in 3 formats: a PDF that can be printed and used as traditional paper surveys, a URL that can be used on a tablet computer like an iPad that can be passed around to folks who are attending events. And for the first time ever, we're going to offer a QR code so that people attending arts and cultural events can fill out the survey on their own smartphones. So we are trying to think about how to make access as easy and efficient as possible. Randy, there's some folks who want access to the slides that you presented. Oh, and Patrick's going to put them on the Georgians for the Arts site.
Sure, easy. And we will have, actually, you can go to our website now, americansforthearts.org/AEP5 or economic impact, and you'll find all of the data for all of the communities that were in the last study. We've got, and this is about helping you to make it as turnkey as possible. Sample PowerPoints, sample infographics, sample tweets. We're going to have the whole communications engine on our end and design engine sort of serving it up to you. And even, when the study itself gets released, at our annual convention, we'll have all the participants in this can participate. We do an amazing media training where we bring in literally there's some top folks, who are sitting anchors or, the last time we had a major network anchor, a CBS reporter who was in the helicopter flying around the Twin Towers in 9/11. And we do on-camera training right there. And then we'll also have web-based interactive types of training as well. So, one of our partners years ago in Providence, Rhode Island, the media training we gave that we provided that she took in combination with the knowledge of the economic impact study, that she was so good with the media the mayor gave her carte blanche, and literally she, the Arts Council director, and the mayor's spokesperson, director of communications, the only people in the city freely allowed to talk to the press. So that's what we want for everybody.
I wanted to jump in real quick and respond to a question from PAX. Thank you very much. The hardest part is getting local arts organizations to respond to our organizational survey in a timely and accurate manner. 100% last time with AEP5, that was true, PAX. And as you may recall, we partnered with a third party to help us with that organizational survey, and it didn't go as well as I hoped that it would. That will not be the case this time around. Our team here at Americans for the Arts is developing a customized web-based survey for organizations. It's going to be a smart survey that uses logic. I think, as Randy mentioned, smaller organizations, those with a budget of $50,000 or $100,000 or less, wherever we set that marker, will get a much shorter survey that asks for top-line information only right from the start. Larger organizations will be asked for a little bit more, but we're really going to streamline that survey and make it as efficient and effective as possible. I'm very confident that that's going to be a smoother process this time than last time. There was also a question in the chat about the survey instruments, design of the survey instruments. Americans for the Arts, we use our own proprietary survey instruments that we develop. The survey instruments for AEP6 have not been finalized yet. We're still working on the tweaking of those. As you can imagine, when we have 300 plus communities around the country that are all doing this at the same time, it's imperative that we use a standard template survey. So we're not customizing the survey with different questions for different partners. Everyone's using the same survey. To tried and true methodology that really focuses on collecting the information that we need for our economic impact analysis, because at the end of the day, this is an economic impact study and we need to make sure it remains effective as such. Anything you want to add to that, Randy?
Well, over the years, the methodology has been vetted by the White House Council of Economic Advisors, bank economists, not far up the road from some of you, and Bank of America headquarters in Charlotte. It's like, yeah, we'll pay for some regional studies. But, I sat with two of their economists for a day and they were like, wow, this is great. Why are we all spending a day together? Talk to headquarters. But yeah, and that's from, the survey all the way through the analysis. Pax, good to see you. When we released the study as well, Ben puts me on a bus and pushes me down the hill for about 6 months, and we really can get to you as well and be part of your release events. Well, we kept busy. We talked to the tourism people, we talked to the business community, the arts community. We had a public lunch when they were there, and so that's, also working with you on the release events, the rollouts. I was chairman of my own Arts and Humanities Commission here in my community for 3 years. I was on it for 6. And I can tell you, when we all know this is, you can't be a prophet in your own land. Sometimes you just need that person from out of town with slides. And so that's something else that we do. And I know I've been to a number of your communities, just looking at folks who are on here. So, that's just another way that we're going to try and support you throughout this process.
Myrna, I see your question about identifying artists with disabilities. So our methodology excludes individual artists. And as Randy said, we exclude individual artists and for-profit commercial businesses. There's really 2 reasons for that. First of all, I'll be honest, we've tried to capture the economic impact of for-profit businesses and individual artists a couple of times in the past as part of this study, and quite frankly, we failed. The organizational survey we do that collects the budget and attendance information, they are reluctant to fill it out because they hold that information really close to the vest and consider it highly confidential. And unlike nonprofits and municipal organizations or programs where that information tends to be public knowledge, we don't have the leverage to solicit that information from them. It's a real challenge. And as Randy likes to say, the nonprofit arts sector receives lots of funding from government sources and other contributed sources, and it's perfectly reasonable to ask, what's the economic impact? What's the return on investment of those dollars? And the AEP6 methodology answers those questions. So in terms of artists with disabilities, no, I don't see how we would be addressing that through the AEP6 survey, through our methodology. On the audience side, however, we are looking at, and as I said, the survey instruments are not finalized. We are looking at expanding the demographics section or modifying the demographics section on the audience survey. And that's certainly a question that's under consideration, is to ask folks to identify whether or not they identify as having a disability of some sort. With that being said, it is of critical importance that we keep our audience survey to one page and one page only, because the number one priority is to get as many responses as possible.
If you all let me chime in for a moment. I think some of the questions that had been posed or alluded to, we've already discussed one-on-one before. So to clarify, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, the reports that are going to be produced are the customized reports that are being produced are for those communities that are becoming a paid partner. They're going to be contributing a bit more to the study than others. Others, I'm going to go ahead and affectionately classify as just the contributors. Contributors and everybody else statewide, we will have an economic calculator, prosperity calculator, specific to Georgia. Now, if you're already familiar with the Arts and Economic Prosperity Calculator, it's extraordinarily useful when talking to funders and the public policy makers, but it's national data. We will have our own data to work with. So to keep that in mind. One thing I didn't hear it, and maybe I just, whatever, the methodology that is being used is different from that which, for example, the film and television industry is doing. Film and TV is looking at some of the expenses that they are incurring, averaging productions, commercials, et cetera, and then using a multiplier. I think it's like what, 2.12 or something like that. That's not what Americans for the Arts is doing. They're getting into the trenches with the survey data. So the data, the methodology is, I think, significantly more accurate than film and TV. Between the disabilities and the BIPIC and other data, keeping in mind that this is purely economic data. And the question was posed, what about DEI? What are you going to be doing to address that? In terms of approaches, positions, et cetera, nothing. But there will be a way to segment out from the data those organizations that would be of interest. For example, the African-American owned or operated arts organizations, they'll be able to be pulled out. So we and the public policy makers can identify that this is a significant area and we need to do that, or it's not. We don't know yet. That's where the data comes in. And then at the end of the day, right now, first of all, thank you for taking some time out to participate in this session. What we're looking for, what Georgians for the Arts is looking for, is two types of participants. We're looking for the partners that are seeking metro, city, county data of their own. There have been many of them in the past. They're all on our site right now, the full reports or the summaries. we're looking for a repeat and more. And I am looking to Athens, Clark, hint, hint, and others. That being said, there's going to be a lot of gaps in between. So in order to get as accurate data as possible, outside of these regional reports, Georgians for the Arts will be reaching out to everybody else kind of in between and trying to find somebody there to help us out, just to coordinate a little bit, because you all know who's in your neighborhood. I don't. Or if we just do not have any contact there, we'll do it ourselves, so we can get the data up to par. So it's not all going to be Metro Atlanta. The economics there are just vastly different than Thomasville. So we need to have a good full spectrum of data. So I think that was all the main things that had been coming up before. And then of course, like been just brought up here with the fees and stuff, working with Georgians for the Arts, it will be cheaper to have the custom reports than in the past. So I'll leave it at that for now. All the other information that I've gathered, that I've heard from in terms of questions, I did get posted on our website /AEP6. If there's something there that is still questioning, I'd be surprised, but I will get the answers and post it there. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, so if I could, about the local partners. So the local partners are basically, they're taking responsibility for the data collection from their community, right? So I think I see Atlanta on here. Atlanta has done it before. They join as a local partner. They sign a contract with Americans for the Arts where they agree to pay a modest cost sharing fee. They take responsibility for really three things. Number one is collecting a minimum of 800 audience surveys from attendees to events that take place in Atlanta throughout the course of the year. And again, I don't want our partner to roll up their sleeves and grab a clipboard and go collect those surveys. I want them to leverage their relationships and work with the presenters and producers in the community to have them help collect those surveys on their behalf. Number two is during the first half of next year, January through June of 22, they're developing a comprehensive list of the eligible nonprofit arts and cultural organizations that exist in the community, in the example in the city of Atlanta. And as Randy said earlier in his presentation, that's everything from traditional nonprofit arts and culture of organizations like museums and theaters, to arts programming that takes place at non-arts facilities like faith-based organizations and community centers and senior centers, unincorporated organizations, municipally owned and municipally operated programs and facilities. We give you a whole definition of eligibility of how to define those eligible organizations. So number one is collecting the audience surveys. Number two is delivering that list. We then survey that list of organizations. And then the third responsibility for our partners is, once the survey is done and some organizations have declined to fill out that survey, we go back to the partners and ask them to help us collect the information that we're missing from, really at that point, the major and mid-sized organizations, the largest budgets and the largest attendance figures that are missing from our data set. This is an economic impact study. Economic impact is based on dollars. So at the end of the day, we want to make sure we really focus our final last-ditch efforts on those largest organizations. That's the part I think that Pax was referring to as the hardest part. And it is, but we're going to make it much easier this time through a streamlined survey that makes it easier for folks to fill out the survey, and then there'll be less of that quote unquote last ditch effort. The benefit of all of that work is that you're paying a pretty modest cost sharing fee for a study that has a value from a for-profit consultancy of $20,000 to $40,000, and you're getting a customized economic impact report that is customized for your community alone. We really work hard to make access to customized economic impact data available and reasonable for communities of all size and organizations of all size, and we're certainly doing that again. As Patrick said, we've been negotiating back and forth on trying to find a way to make this as financially feasible and reasonable for as many communities as possible in Georgia, and I think we're in a pretty good place. So we want as many local partners to help us get data and to get that customized report for their community as you know, as we with Patrick can recruit. And then in order to do a statewide analysis, you take all of those local partners and their communities out of the equation, and then there is this quote unquote rest of the state of Georgia that we need to collect information from. And I think that's the part that has Patrick a little bit nervous, and that's where he's going to come to you for the contributing help, I think is the way he put it, from others to help with the data collection from their communities. So I guess that's a little bit of overview of how I view the local partnership working. Patrick, hopefully that was helpful.
You know, one thing about the cost sharing fee that you mentioned, Ben, I can't remember if we hit this or not. It can be paid over 3 years, 21, 22, 23. You know, we've got a number of communities that are like, oh my God, we've got federal COVID pandemic relief dollars. Invoice me right this second. You know, don't even send me a contract. Let me just pay because it's in there. And then, of course, we've got other communities where like, oh man, it's really hard right now, but we know we'll have things together by 2023. So we're totally, you know, like whatever the people end up, you know, where they're at, you know, there is that flexibility, because the bottom line is we just want communities on board with this. Make sure everyone has the opportunity to use in their communities.
Mhm. Yeah. And regarding that, in terms of government entities, because this is so far out, many of the cities, towns, counties, et cetera, now they can consider this in their fiscal year 23 budgets. So there is time for them. GCA, Georgia Council for the Arts, is also looking for the exact same thing. So basically, the more larger partners we have, it pulls the cost down for everybody.
You know, some communities also have had success. Literally 2 hours ago, I was just on with all your arts leader colleagues in South Dakota. You know, a couple of folks were talking about, they went to their Chamber of Commerce and their CVB and said, hey, we're doing this. It's going to be benefiting everybody. I mean, because, right, is there a better case for tourism and cultural tourism than those data I showed earlier? And, you know, they're getting some of their allied partners to, you know, make contributions as well. So, I mean, that's, you know, there's a question or two earlier on, you know, just how other folks are doing it. So.
So I would say that, as we've said, the data collection begins in January. And Randy, you may have just said this, and if so, I apologize. I was reading through the chat. Our priority, if you want to be a part of the study as a local partner, is to get you on board this fall so that you're ready to begin the data collection in January. And if you're struggling with the funding, push it to 22, push it to 23. You know, kick that can down the road, and we'll work with you, and we'll find a way to make that happen. But if you want to be in, let us know. Let's get you in so you're ready for the data collection. One other thing I almost forgot to address was Patrick's comments on DEI. It is certainly something that's very top of mind for us, and we're thinking about it every day, starting with the survey design and the data collection methodology, and encouraging and reaching out to the BIPOC arts organization community and facilitating their participation in these surveys, all the way through to, you know, and removing bias from the survey data collection methodology and process, all the way through to the release of the findings in June of 2023, and how to best effectively communicate the results of the study to all different communities. So it is very top of mind, and we're thinking about it in a really serious manner.
Okay, well, I booked for 1 hour. For 1 hour, I know a lot of folks are heading back to the office. Hopefully, they were having lunch right now while they could, a little break. But everybody else, you know, thank you for taking the time today to spend with us talking about AEP6. If you are interested in participating in some way, shape, or form, contact me. I've already bothered a lot of you repeatedly over and over and over again. So just contact me, and let's find a way for you to participate one way or the other. And like Ben said, and Randy said, let's just get you on board first. And Georgians for the Arts, we're going to find a way to make this economical to do the economic study. So that being said, visit us at georgiansforthearts.org/AEP6. This recording will be up as soon as it gets processed. As soon as I get slides, we'll have that available to you too. And Randy, Ben, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you. Thanks everyone for having us. It was great to share with you. And I just also want to say thank you everyone for the incredible work you're doing day in, day out. This has been, any given year is a challenging year, for the work we do. And I just know how hard everyone's been working for the last 18 months, especially. So thanks for everything you do for the arts. It's important.
Awesome. Great. Thank you all, and have a great day.
Hi, everybody.
So long.